More drama with Donald Trump, the U.S. president saying he is ending trade talks with Canada after the Ontario government ran anti-tariff ads featuring the voice of former U.S. President Ronald Reagan. Let's dive into this with William Pellerin, international trade partner at McMillan. William, thanks very much for joining us.
Pleasure being here, Roger.
Initial reaction to the news. Is it surprising we're seeing another outburst from the president?
Not really surprising, but certainly very disappointing, right? The latest twist that illustrates once again the complexities and unpredictability of dealing with the U.S. administration on trade. And I think for steel and aluminum producers here in Canada, this is particularly frustrating because there was this hope that a deal was looking imminent, that President Trump and Prime Minister Carney could reach an agreement in South Korea on the margins of the APEC conference next week. That now looks like there's at least, at a minimum, a pin in that, and it's not clear that we'll get relief as potentially expected.
Is this something that we were was almost expected, that Trump was going to have a little pause again? The talks were going; they seemed to be going smoothly. There was optimism, and he just wanted to throw a little spanner in the works.
It very well could be. I mean, this is the U.S. administration's playbook 101, where we often see when a little bit of leverage is always gained through some sort of Truth Social overnight post. Hard to tell whether that's the case here or whether the provincial government in Ontario struck a particular nerve with respect to these advertisements in this case. So it's difficult to say where this one lands and whether it lands very hard or whether it's just, again, something that the United States is looking for a little bit of leverage before actually getting to a deal next week.
And do you think this ad was the Ontario government that put it out? Did it reach the people it needed to reach south of the border, do you think?
I think it's getting there. Absolutely. I mean, if it has the U.S. president's attention, then it must be being seen by the people that matter. So in that sense, I think the ad is somewhat successful. Whether or not it continues to be the right move is another question entirely, and one for the Prime Minister and particularly for Premier Ford, who has indicated that it will continue to run, including during the World Series game tonight.
And with heading up to the ASEAN conference and the other APEC, I was slipping my mind there. It's a Friday afternoon. The APEC summit, and we're talking about that the Prime Minister is hoping to meet possibly with Xi Jinping. Is that obviously to try and settle the tariff issues with China, but also I think have we lost William? I think we might have him back. Hang on.
I'm here.
Okay, there you go. Oh, we're still getting some feedback here. Oh, there we go. I think we're good now, William. Okay. Let's continue. Now, we heard that Prime Minister Carney had hoped to meet with Xi Jinping in Asia. I know to talk about the tariffs there, but is that just to put a little barb and a little dig at Trump as well, do you think?
Well, there's no question that the Prime Minister is putting a lot of emphasis on market diversification right now, right? This week, he announced that he was going to try to double Canadian exports to countries other than the United States. I think historically, diversification away from the United States meant China. I think we're also not looking too much at China this time around, but if we're going to get away from the United States to some degree, there's no question that part of that has to be China. And we have a number of tariff issues with China currently, where they're no longer buying, or rather applying large tariffs on canola exports, on all sorts of seafood products, amongst others. So there's no question that we also need to get to a deal with respect to what's going on China tariffs. So it makes sense that they continue to meet. But it is, to your point, threading a very fine line, because I think every time there is some sort of rapprochement or getting together with China, this is not what the United States wants, and they want us more firmly in Camp USA, despite the difficulties that they've imposed on Canada.
And what are the realities of trying to do some work with Mexico outside of CUSMA?
I think the main reality there is that Mexico is a very important market globally. but not one that can come really close to replacing the U.S. market. And the type of goods that we send to Mexico are not the same type of goods that we send to the United States, generally speaking, right? The U.S. consumer has deep pockets, and that's not the same thing for the for the Mexican consumer. That generally buys lower end products. For example, if you're selling luxury furniture from the province of Manitoba, you're not looking to the Mexican consumer in the same way as the supplement or the new buyer of that product. So I think market diversification away from the United States takes a lot of time. Mexico can be a small part of that solution. China can be a small part of that solution, but I think it means that we have to be really aggressively pursuing countries around the world, and not just from the political perspective, right? I mean, we talk a great deal about the Prime Minister making announcements to diversify markets. At the end of the day, that's a business decision that each company has to make.
Okay, William, thank you as always.
My pleasure.
William Pellerin is an international trade partner at McMillan.